Buckle your seatbelts, boys and girls, because we're going back to the early 2000s. What's up everyone, John from ARTV. It is time for a Patreon-supported throwback review for American Hi-Fi's debut self-titled album. Released in 2001, it was pretty successful as the band were signed to Island Records. It was produced by renowned producer, especially now at this point, Bob Rock, and it had a few successful singles from it, including the big song Flavor of the Week. Except the catch is, week was spelled like W-E-A-K, like weak. Not strong. Today's review was made possible by my Patreon supporter Parish. I really hope I'm pronouncing the name correctly, and I am so sorry if I am not. I do apologize, this review should have been out sooner, but I initially recorded a review of this and just wasn't happy with the end result. I didn't put it out because I didn't feel like I had given the album enough of a chance, and honestly, in a lot of ways, I've done a 180 in my thoughts on this record. They've turned around, so I do hope that you enjoy the review, and to anyone watching, if you do want to get in and support ARTV and also get a video request in the meantime, then you can do that. It is the top link down below. I've actually gotten a decent amount of requests to talk about American Hi-Fi over the years, and while I did know some of their songs, including like one of their more recent singles, Allison, I wasn't like super invested in them to the point where I was like, I'm either nostalgic for this and I want to hear more, or that it was so interesting that I had to hear more. I was kind of in a gray area in between. And now, thanks to this Patreon supporter, I did check out the full record, spend some time with it honestly, and it needed a lot of listens for me to truly get into the vibe and the sound here. And while it is pop-punk overall, and it can be pretty cheesy in places, especially that lead single, the big hit Flavor of the Week, which I honestly do not like, the album has a lot more to offer than what you just see with the single. At its core, sure, this record is pop-punk, but there are other influences here, and that's when I find this record to get a lot more interesting, when it takes on these darker leaning tendencies, and also moments that surprise me with maybe influences of like 90s alternative, rock music in general, and sure, the pop-punk and the fierce drums, but they do something when they jam out together and they play these songs that just gave me a little bit of a newfound respect for them, and especially for their lead singer, the frontman Stacey Jones. If the name Stacey Jones sounds familiar to you, it might be because you know him as the touring drummer for Miley Cyrus and also as her music director. He actually had a role presented to him after being on the series Laguna Beach that really opened the possibilities, working in A&R, management, and now being a music director. Not only is he the music director for Miley Cyrus and plays drums for her, also Noah Cyrus, bands like Broods, even an act like Troye Sivan. It's very interesting to see how his career has really rolled out. And in the meantime, he still works on American Hi-Fi material, is touring with them. He also tours with Matchbox 20, and he's just really all over the place. I gotta say, I've got a newfound respect for this guy because he hustles hard. Getting into the sound of some of these songs, we open up the album with Surround, which is reminiscent of the sound of maybe something like Switchfoot and other bands of the early 2000s, and while I do like the guitar and drum presence here on this track, I can't say that it's really a big juggernaut on the album. In fact, we really don't get to a song that fits that description until track number 3, which is A Bigger Mood. This one is definitely a jam with high-octane guitars, a big energy about it, fitting the description of pop-punk, but also some alternative-leaning sounds that really do suit them well. When they're playing at their core strengths, that's when this record sounds the best, and sure, you could say that about any band, but sometimes American Hi-Fi really hone in on what they're good at. And now, this isn't my favorite song. There are other bigger songs on this record that do it even better, but still, A Bigger Mood definitely starts to set the tone. Some fans of pop-punk and American Hi-Fi in general would be satisfied with some of their hits like Another Perfect Day, which is perfectly okay, but I just find it to be kind of like grade C material, not great, not bad, somewhere in between. It's a song that's fine, sounds like it would fit a summer movie soundtrack or something like that, and you might say similar things like I'm a Fool, which is kind of a lovesick love song breakup, I don't know, somewhere in between. You're going for someone and you don't know if the feelings are reciprocated, but you're acting like a fool for them anyways. It's fine. I do like Jones's vocals on that one, especially when he hits the higher register, but overall, can't say that it really flexes the band's strengths. What I really love about this record is when it gets into some of those darker leaning moments, like My Only Enemy, and that track is fierce. Jagged guitars cut this one open, and it already already mimics a darker feeling that we've heard on a few of the other songs on American Hi-Fi up to this point, but this one really enthralls and cuts loose, especially in its final act, because there's just like a wall of noise, the layer and depth of the guitars that sounds so good. And honestly, I wasn't really soaking it in on my first few listens to the album, but once I started to come back to it, give it my exclusive full attention, I really started to appreciate what's going on here. In fact, it gets loud, it gets mental, the drumming is fantastic, and they just get so into it and inspiring. It sounds great. And I could say similar things about the 2 tracks that come right before that. I promise I mean this as a compliment, but I really feel like the track Hi-Fi Killer belongs in a video game soundtrack. Like, I could picture myself playing Burnout or another racing game, and this song just kicking it off. It doesn't really have an instrumental intro at all. In fact, it goes right into the vocals, and I always liked that song. I had heard it in the past. I had never really saved it to any playlist or anything, but at this point, I've added it to my throwback nostalgia playlist, and this is an absolute jam. Immediately after that, we get sucked into Blue Day, and this one does have a really nice, a little bit of a darker vibe to it, but it still rocks out in a big way. The guitars are a little bit more nuanced here, and they show off some skill that we really hadn't seen a ton of up to this point. Not saying that there wasn't skill, but I just like the fact that they're not playing just a steady trugging rhythm or anything like that. They dare to mix it up, and it truly pays off. Other songs on the record do occasionally have something grand to offer us, but some of them just kind of feel like a sleight of hand, in a way, a mediocre gesture, and tracks like What About Today and also Safer on the Outside just kind of put that in my mind. Like, I don't know if I would come back to this. Safer on the Outside especially just feels like safe. Lyrically, musically, just a little bit sanitized for me, especially when American Hi-Fi show that they have better strengths on this very record. And also, the closing track I do like, but it gets a little bit repetitive in places, especially with the mentioning of Fade. It just sounds like a 90s jam to me in a way, and reminds me of other bands. Instead of it being more like American Hi-Fi's song, it just sounds like a blend and a hybrid of other stuff that I've heard. We of course have to talk about Flavor of the Week, because everybody talks about the line, "Too stoned, Nintendo," and it's pure cringe to me, to be quite honest. I can't stand this song. I don't know why. For some time I did feel a bit nostalgic for it, but honestly, after listening to this record and spending a decent amount of time with it, I can safely say that I just want to put this one in the discard bin somewhere. I know it's nostalgic for a lot of people, and I'm not coming down on you if you enjoy it, but the lyrics here, it's just like, it's that song where the guy is like, you should be with me, girl, because, you know, he's just getting stoned and playing Nintendo. And like one of my own viewers pointed out, there's other songs that do it a lot better, and one of those, for example, off the top of my head, definitely Maybe by FM Static. There's ways to be cheesy and it be endearing, but this, my friends, is not one of those moments. To close things out, I'll talk about 2 more songs, the first of those being Scar, which is on the positive side of the spectrum for me. I love the drums that really just bounce around on the intro to that one, and it just drives in with a searing burn to the guitar, and also just feels like they're kind of carrying a torch in a way about something that's been done to them, obviously, a wrong that's been committed against someone. So Scar is definitely getting favor in my eyes. And also the other one that I had a lot of people asking me and wondering, what are you gonna think of this track? That is Don't Wait for the Sun, because this is a bleak moment and something that's a little bit more restrained. It has a slower pacing to it, and it reminds me of like the early 90s, because it comes out in a haze and they finally get going, and once it does unleash, you're not gonna look back. You're not going to want to put this song down, because things open up in the best way. I love the driving guitar force on this song, but it really gets going in its latter act, but I also really can't discredit the opening, because they're showing that they're able to do a change of pace quite well. It's a grower, not a shower. American Hi-Fi's debut self-titled album definitely grew on me, and honestly, at this point, I'm really enjoying a good majority of the tracks. It's not something that I'm head over heels in love with, but still, I definitely underestimated this band and the power of what they could do with mixing up their sound. Overall, on debut album by American Hi-Fi, I'm going to have to say this is a 3.5 out of 5. What do you guys think? Are you nostalgic for it? Do you hate it? Do you love it? You're somewhere in between. If you've never heard it, there's a link to stream it down below. And don't forget, drop a like on the video while you're leaving a comment. If you'd like to support me on Patreon and get your favorite album reviewed, or else make a video request for one of my series like Dear John or 7 on Sunday, anything like that, then hit me up on Patreon at the top link or else the annotation in the corner. You can see another Patreon review here, another recent video here, and other than that, I'll see you soon for more on ARTV.